Hello, my name is Clarke Murphy, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Russell Reynolds Associates. It's great to be here today. I've enjoyed the discussions, the debates that we've had so far. And it's interesting to me that we've discussed in these meetings regulatory approaches, financial burdens, strategies, and tactics. But fundamentally, we're all here because we care, because we want action, we want faster progress, and we want to understand the paths for both of those. This year, in the midst of the pandemic, we've also encountered wildfires and hurricanes, amongst other climate-affected issues. And as a result, these crises have exposed how unstable, fragile many of our organizations are. Our supply chains, our health and safety, work patterns that reinforce this uncertainty, the human element to how companies survive and succeed. And just last week, regulators asked for greater risk management of insurance companies regarding climate change, as insurance payouts for natural disasters globally stood at a record $219 billion over 2 years. As we've seen over the past 2 days, the private sector can make significant progress when it sees an opportunity to pursue. It's up to us, the private sector, and our partnerships with NGOs to seize this opportunity. It's clear that governments will not be taking the lead. Therefore, we must. To make progress necessary to achieve our sustainability goals, we need to act, but to act, we need great leaders. With the commitment of investors, employees, and customers, companies can make a difference when it comes to sustainability. But we need leaders who lead more dynamically, who lead for greater impact, and who develop the next generation of sustainable leaders who will follow them, and the generation after that as well. So at Russell Reynolds Associates and the UNGC spent several years and a great deal of resources studying sustainability pioneers, those people who are changing the world, or at the very least improving it dramatically. We wanted to discover what drove them and what made them so successful as sustainable leaders. Over the next 25 minutes, let me walk you through our research, our discoveries, and the power that sustainable leaders have to improve the way the world is led. We're at a turning point for business, and this quote sums it up well. Capitalism has been an undeniable force for positive change in modern history. It has led to innovations that have changed our lives for the better and lifted billions out of abject poverty. But there's so much more that we can do. We know. That's why we're all here. That's why you're hearing these words. In the course of doing fantastic work, many companies are recognizing the impact of their business operations. Just look at how clean our skies were earlier this spring when factories paused, cars were off the road, and industry, sadly, came to a standstill. Even our water in many parts of the world was becoming cleaner quickly. As businesses start back up, we have an opportunity to modify the way we work. We can make temporary changes like clean air and water become permanent. It's within our grasp. So where are we? How far have we come? Sustainability commitments are at an all-time high. 92% of chief executives say sustainability is critical to their business success. Just 48% say they actually integrated sustainability into their operations, though. And only 21% think business is currently playing a critical role in achieving the UNGC's Sustainable Development Goals. Why has progress been so slow? Because we do not have enough sustainable leaders to act as quickly as is necessary. We must identify and develop the next generations of sustainable leaders. There's never been a critical moment that required great leadership as right now. Institutional investors have made it clear they value sustainability. Consumers will buy more from sustainable companies. And employees will stay or go depending on a company's sustainable philosophy. With this trifecta, leadership has arrived. So let us help you understand sustainable leadership today, because without it, we're unlikely to see the progress we need at the pace we need. At Russell Reynolds Associates, our mission is to improve the way the world is led. Every year, we recruit thousands of leaders into C-suite and board positions, and we wanted to understand to what degree sustainability is a factor in the decisions organizations make about who to appoint to their leadership teams. Analyzing close to 4,000 executive and board position specifications, we found that in 15% of cases, those specifications made clear reference to sustainability. The question, though, is where these references are made. Do they simply describe the company, or do they describe the responsibilities of the role and the requirements to get the job? Unfortunately, in only 4% of 4,000 of these cases was sustainability experience or mindset an actual requirement. To put another way, businesses are doing a great job embedding sustainability into descriptions about their company, but not in defining their leaders. If we believe that the best leaders focus on both profits and societal benefits, then this gap should concern us. Change starts at the top. We have to embed this in leadership and in organizations. Our research showed us incredible examples of sustainable leaders. I'd like to showcase a few of these CEOs and board leaders who are already affecting change. Kes de Harde at Carlsberg is one example. The beer industry actually typically uses 3.2 liters of water to produce 1 liter of beer. Kes and Carlsberg thought that was unacceptable. So through their investments in research and development, they established a pilot brewery to change the way they made their beer. They reduced their water consumption at that pilot brewery by 40%, and they're still going strong. Chris Nassetta and Hilton Hotels have changed the way they run their hotels, reducing their carbon emissions by 36% and water consumption by 22% in the last decade. Al Kelly and Visa Payments have transitioned to 100% renewable electricity across their global operations. Francesco Staracci and Enel Energy tied their bond issuance by 55% of renewable energy sources by the end of 2021. The coupon on the bond will rise if they do not hit their renewable energy targets. These companies have put their mouth where their money is. They are sustainable leaders who lead. How did they do it? What did they do? This is what we discovered. This is what we want to articulate about sustainable leaders. We partnered with UNGC to find out these answers. We interviewed and studied 55 sustainable pioneer CEOs. These pioneers innovated and pushed for real change in their organizations, and we wanted to learn what they were doing differently. Our analysis was designed to identify their differentiating characteristics, their motivations, their competencies, and their actions. Then we could help other businesses identify and develop leaders with the same differentiating characteristics. So what did we learn? First of all, these pioneers were passionate about both business results and sustainability. But their journeys to leadership were quite different. Largely, they fell into 3 buckets. The first bucket we call the born believers, those that described a passion for the environment or social issues having been fostered from an early age. The second group we call the convinced, those that described an increased understanding of the strategic importance of sustainability as they grew in their careers. And finally, what we call the awoken, those that described a pivotal moment of realization prompted by some major event or experience that helped them understand the power of sustainable leadership. It would be easy to assume that most of the pioneers are born believers, but you can see clearly this is not the case. But why does that matter? It matters for 2 reasons. First, it tells us there are certainly more sustainable leaders in our organization today than we might think. And secondly, it tells us that we have an opportunity to shape and grow more sustainable leaders in our ranks. They're there. Go find them. Develop these leaders. This is how we create more action. If you're going to find these leaders, let us help you try and understand them. Our research clarified motivations and their experiences. And most importantly, you need to understand the capabilities that make a leader a sustainable leader. And this is critical if you want to develop more sustainable leaders. We found that sustainable leaders combine a sustainable mindset, which we'll talk about, with 4 differentiating leadership attributes. Mindset and leadership attributes. The 4 attributes are: first, multi-level systems thinking; stakeholder inclusion; disruptive innovation; and long-term activation. And we'll run through all of them. This model of a sustainable leader provides a critical blueprint for organizations as they accelerate, and that's what we want to do, accelerate identifying, selecting, and developing the sustainable leaders of tomorrow. So first, what is a sustainable mindset? It is a purpose-driven belief that business is intrinsically linked to its wider societal and environmental context. It's also a belief that success as a leader doesn't just come from creating financial value, but social and environmental value as well. Mads Nipper, CEO of Grundfos, the Danish pump manufacturer, sums this up nicely when he says, "I'm 100% convinced that the companies that don't take a full stakeholder approach, creating value for all stakeholders, not just shareholders, will not be as competitive and will not exist over time. The CEOs who don't take their companies on a more sustainable path are not living up to their professional obligations." Russell Reynolds Associates believes this fundamentally, but so too do institutional investors. The first leadership attribute I mentioned is multi-level systems thinking. A mouthful, I know. These leaders are always looking at how their organizations fit within the larger economic, societal, and environmental systems. They have a broader vision, like looking at a chessboard 3 steps ahead. They see how all of the moves fit together and affect each other. And this vision allows them to spot new opportunities that turn sustainability into competitive advantage. Not incremental process change, but integrated competitive advantage. Mads Nipper, who I mentioned to you just now, is a great example of what's possible when you understand how your business fits into the broader system. As the COVID-19 pandemic began to disrupt supply chains and derail regular business around the world, Mads recognized that the role his company could play in sustaining commercial ecosystem in which it operates. Grundfos moved to leverage its untapped cash reserves to pay suppliers on an earlier schedule than previously agreed, making sure that there was no supply chain disruption during the crisis, and in fact, giving continuity to those suppliers beyond the crisis. Our second attribute, we found time and again that sustainable leaders actively included stakeholders to drive transformation. They actively listen to a wide range of different viewpoints when making decisions, fielding feedback from employees, customers, investors, governments, and the communities in which they operate. This diversity of thought is critical when developing sustainability strategies. Denise Morrison, the former CEO of Campbell's, recognized this as she developed Campbell's sustainability strategy. She solicited input from a wide range of customers, suppliers, and other stakeholders to understand what they saw as the most important parts of the journey from farm to fork. The stakeholder feedback helped Morrison and her team identify a number of sustainability themes to address: sustainable agriculture, food safety, and diversity and inclusion. The team then mapped the stakeholder identified themes to the SDGs in order to identify the areas where they could make the biggest impact, while also best addressing stakeholder priorities. Can you imagine a more difficult challenge than the food industry? Again, Denise was a leader who led. Disruptive innovation is the third attribute. Sustainable leaders recognize that real progress requires exponential change and business model innovation. Incremental change is not enough. These leaders challenge traditional approaches and they confidently steer into the unknown. They make bold investments that test the limits of what's possible. Farzana Chowdhury, the CEO of Bangladesh's Green Delta Insurance, embraced disruptive innovation. She realized that women represented a significant untapped market for financial services in Bangladesh. She also found that cultural norms made it harder for women to seek financial independence. So she developed an insurance app targeted at women that eliminates the need to visit a brick and mortar location and empowers women to make purchasing decisions without the involvement of their family. The app led to 45,000 new policyholders, and it helped Green Delta become the largest provider of non-life insurance in Bangladesh. Another leader who led. And finally, long-term activation. This is a critical trait. Sustainable leaders recognize that change takes time. But our pioneer leaders set audacious goals and rigorously drive concerted action. They stay the course in the face of setbacks, and they make decisions that may be unpopular with shorter-term stakeholders. When Ilham Kadri became the CEO of specialty chemicals company Solvay in Brussels, she knew that realigning the company's sustainability strategy would be one of her top priorities. The company has a program called Solvay's One Planet, which aims to increase the proportion of sustainable products in the company's portfolio and targets a 26% reduction in greenhouse gases by 2030. You notice the timeline here, it's a vision for 2030. Sustainable leaders are committed to action over the long term. It's likely this persistence pays off. Ilham estimates that investments in the sustainability program will cost less than 10% of the company's annual capex, but lead to an annual return of 8 to 10%. What do all these leaders have in common? They set goals, they set a timeline, and they hold themselves accountable. They are leaders who lead sustainably. It makes them different. So where do we go from here? If we want progress, if we truly want a decade of action, then ask yourself, who are the sustainable leaders in your company? Have you identified them? Are you developing them? Your legacy as a sustainable leader is to multiply the number of sustainable leaders that follow you. You would not be here if you did not care, and your legacy can be those you develop that multiply what you have done. Organizations must make it a requirement that senior leaders possess a sustainable mindset and the 4 leadership attributes: multi-level thinking, stakeholder inclusion, disruptive innovation, long-term activation. We see the preeminent organizations are taking concerted steps to embed sustainability into the processes that drive how leaders are selected, promoted, rewarded, and developed. This provides a powerful signal from the top that the leadership team will back its commitment to sustainability with real decisions about current and future leaders. And let's be clear, investors are figuring out who these companies are and they value them more highly. But there is an issue. Companies are not identifying and developing enough sustainable leaders quickly enough. At the current speed of progress, it would take over half a century for us to reach a point where every executive needed to have a sustainability mindset. That is too slow. We know that. We must start intentionally changing expectations in the corner office so our organizations can intentionally change the world for the better. If you take nothing else away from today, I hope you understand the obligation we all have to radically increase the number of sustainable leaders in our organization. We can identify them, we can develop them, we can retain them because they believe in companies where we focus on long-term profits and long-term progress. With more sustainable leaders, they go hand in hand. Great leaders always rise to the occasion. And never has it been more important to have great sustainable leaders rise to the occasion. This is both our opportunity and our obligation. Please join Russell Reynolds Associates in improving the way the world is led. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.